Welcome back to the Nerdy Grail, and I've got a special video today because I'm going to count today's video as a little bit of a 250 subscriber special, and I just want to say thank you everyone for subscribing and helping out my channel. It's really appreciated. So I thought to celebrate that tremendous occasion, for me anyway, I would celebrate by doing another franchise discussion, but doing a franchise that I adore and I love. This time it's not a movie franchise, but instead a video game franchise. And as you can see by all the games and the merch that I got behind me, I'm talking about a franchise which is definitely in my top 5 favourite video game franchises of all time. I've adored all of these games. Wow. Almost all of these games, but I'll discuss that when I get to it. I am, of course, if you've seen the thumbnail, if you've seen the games behind me, I'm, of course, talking about the Batman Arkham franchise, which has been going strong since 2009 when Batman Arkham Asylum first dropped, and oh my goodness, I have adored these games. Batman Arkham Asylum, Batman Arkham City, Batman Arkham Origins, Batman Arkham Knight, Suicide Squad, Kill the Justice League. We don't want to talk about that one, but I will, of course, talk about that one in this video. But there has also been some VR games as well. However, in terms of the franchise discussion I'm going to do today, I'm only going to be talking about the games that you see behind me. So I'm not going to talk about Batman Arkham VR, and I'm not going to talk about Batman Arkham Shadows. I'm simply, in this video, going to break down all the games, give you my thoughts on them, and whether I think they're still strong to this day. So in this video, I'm going to talk about Batman Arkham Asylum. I'm going to then talk about Batman Arkham City. I'm then going to talk about Batman Arkham Origins. I'm then going to talk about Batman Arkham Knight. And then, yes, I am going to talk about Suicide Squad, Kill the Justice League. Yeah, I can't believe it's been over a year since that game came out. I haven't touched that game in probably about 6 or 7 months. But yeah, so let's waste no more time because it's going to be a little bit of a lengthy video, but I am looking forward to discussing it and giving you my thoughts and opinions on the Arkham franchise. So let's waste no more time and jump straight into my Batman Arkham video game review and discussion, starting in 2009 with the release of Batman Arkham Asylum. Starting off this, we've got Batman Arkham Asylum from 2009, which over here in the UK released on August 28th, 2009. And even though, as you can see, I've got them all on PlayStation 4, PlayStation 5, even some on the Wii U, back in the day, the first version that I played of Batman Arkham Asylum was on the Xbox 360. That was the original edition I had, but now I've just got the Return to Arkham edition, which is the remastered Game of the Year editions that they put in a bundle, which I think came out, I want to say 2015, 2016. But yeah, Batman Arkham Asylum was the first game released, and for many people is considered one of the best. There's 2 games in this franchise which can flip-flop for people, and it's usually between this one and the next one, which I'll talk about. I really like Batman Arkham Asylum. I like the claustrophobic feel because this all takes place on Arkham Island in the Arkham Asylum after Batman has apprehended the Joker and brought him in to custody. But it turns out that the Joker was planning this so he could take control of the asylum, release all the inmates, and you're basically trying to fight your way through the asylum to recapture Joker and regain control of Arkham Island. And it was brilliant, absolutely brilliant. The combat system in this game, did improve as the franchise went on, but we got that early taste, that free-flowing combat where you can build up combos really easily. I really, really enjoyed it. It was a very addictive form of combat, shall we say, which Insomniac in Spider-Man sort of kind of tried to duplicate, but they did their own little spin and twist on it. But I'll discuss the Insomniac games in a different video. But yeah, Batman Arkham Asylum, the atmosphere in this game is fantastic as well. The eerie music when you change locations and go to different areas of the asylum. Joker's voice coming over the tannoy is some of the best ever. Sometimes I'll just stop the gameplay just to listen to Joker's announcements. They are brilliant. His conversations he has with Harley, with other villains in the franchise, I think is done really, really well. But in particular, we've got to talk about the main man himself. Well, the main 2 people who make this franchise what it is. I'm obviously talking about the late, great Kevin Conroy, who voices Batman, and Mark Hamill, who voices Joker for most of these games. Not all the games. Same with Kevin Conroy. There is one game here that Kevin Conroy is not in, but I'll get to that when we get to it. They do a fantastic job in bringing the characters to life, and if you've watched the Batman animated series, you will easily recognize them as Batman and Joker, and they just swoop straight in, and it feels like you're watching an episode of the animated series. They are fantastic, and I just love it from start to finish. There's other characters in this as well. Obviously, you've got Jim Gordon, you've got the rest of the GCPD, you've got a pretty decent rogues gallery in this as well, from obviously Joker to Scarecrow to Killer Croc. You've got obviously Harley Quinn. You've got the Riddler, who also in these games is a bit of a theme with the Riddler, how he sets up these Riddler trophies and puzzles for you to solve. They're a bit, shall we say, slightly easier in this game to obtain. It's more clue-based, and you can usually just find them gathered around, and you just use one of the gadgets you've got and you can easily find it, but they get more elaborate and a little bit more complex as the series goes on. For a lot of people, the Riddler trophies can be a bit monotonous, and I will agree, there's a bit too many of them at times. Like, you can go to like 250, 300 Riddler trophies, and it gets a little bit silly after a while. But I do love the Riddler in these games as well. He's very, very good. But yeah, like I said, there's a tons of villains in this, and as you go through the game, you do various boss battles, which the boss battles in the Arkham games are a bit hit or miss. And I would say the Arkham Asylum ones are sort of that middle ground, because there's not too many. You've got a fight with Bane, which is like where they call them Titan battles in this, which is okay. It's not the best. You've got then another fight, which is against 2 Titan thugs. You've then got a Titan Poison Ivy, who's juiced up on Titan formula. And you've also got a chase and hide-and-seek game with Killer Croc. You've also got a little bit of a hide-and-seek game with Scarecrow, when Batman gets infused with fear toxin, and you sort of go into this weird trippy world, which is really, really cool, I must say. The atmosphere is great, and it is scary at times when Batman's freaking out. But so you get those sequences, and then your final boss battle then is against a Titan-infused Joker, who at the end of the game, when you're trying to save Jim Gordon, Batman gets infected with the Titan formula, uses an antidote which he's collected from Killer Croc and Poison Ivy all throughout the game, and Joker then decides to shoot himself with the Titan formula in order to take Batman on. And the game ends with obviously Batman managing to get to the Joker, curing the Joker, curing everyone who's infused with the Titan formula, and saving the Asylum pretty much. It is a really, really fun game. You can spend hours and hours on this game from start to finish. Like I said, if I had to say about the 3 main positives of this game, I'd say the story is fantastic. I would say the start of the world building is really, really good. And I'd say like the atmosphere is perfect. You know, claustrophobic feel for being set on one island in one big building. I think it's done really, really well. And it's enough to keep you engaged from start to finish. I loved Arkham Asylum. I'd give this game a solid 8 out of 10. It is phenomenal, and I still play it on and off to this day. But the Arkham franchise only gets better from here, at least in my personal opinion, because after Arkham Asylum, only 2 years later, in 2011, we were treated to what for me is debatably one of my favourite superhero games of all time, one of my favourite comic book games of all time, and I'm going to break it down for you now. I'm of course talking about Batman Arkham City. Like I said, it was only about a 2-year gap between Batman Arkham Asylum and Batman Arkham City. This game came out in 2011, and the jump between Arkham Asylum and Arkham City was pretty noticeable in like combat, in the world that you can explore. It became a little bit more open world. It was still enclosed. You had a certain section you could go around, but it was a lot bigger than the Asylum, at least in my opinion. You know, the story vastly got more intense and darker. You know, you got introduced to other characters which you hadn't seen in Arkham Asylum, so you got to see more of Batman's rogue gallery. It was just phenomenal. So this game, it carries on with the same cast as the previous game. So you've got Kevin Conroy, who returns as Batman in this game. You've then also got Mark Hamill, who reprises his role as Joker in a little bit of a different format this time. But the whole game revolves around this new area of Gotham which has been sealed off, known as Arkham City. After the Asylum has failed, they decide to move all the inmates here to keep them contained in one big city. Um, and Bruce has gone to basically say, "Nah, this isn't right." But he ends up getting thrown into Arkham City, and then gets entangled in this big plot, this big mystery, which the Asylum was controlled by Warden Sharp, Quincy Sharp, but this is now in charge. The person who's in charge of Arkham City is Hugo Strange, but there's some mysterious things going on. And so Bruce has been sent in to investigate. They introduce Catwoman into this as well. She gets her own story, and she actually becomes a playable character in this as well, which I think is brilliant. You get introduced other Batman Rogues Gallery characters like Two-Face and the Penguin, who both are brilliant in these franchises. I love them as well. You get introduced to other characters like Clayface, Mr. Freeze, Ra's al Ghul, Talia al Ghul. Loads of characters. The Mad Hatter, Deadshot. There's loads of side missions in this as well. And that's something that gets implemented in Arkham City is side missions. So not only do you have the core main story, but also throughout the main campaign or post main campaign, you can do these side missions, little bits and pieces that will pop up throughout the game where you can solve a crime by Victor Zsasz or solve something from Deadshot or go to the Mad Hatter's tea party. All these little bits and pieces are there for you to do. So there's a lot that you can do. You can delve many hours into Arkham City. But in this game, while Batman's investigating Arkham City, he actually gets entangled with some goings on with Joker again, who's actually dying in this game because of the effects of the previous game and the Titan formula that he injected into himself. It's corrupted his blood, and now he is slowly killing himself. And he infects Batman with this blood, and so they're both on a time limit to try and find the antidote. So Batman ends up having to try and help save himself and the Joker while trying to stop what's known as Protocol 10, which is basically Hugo Strange deciding to just destroy all of Arkham City, killing all the inmates in one fell swoop. Just to rid the whole world of all of crime, basically. Which obviously, Batman's rule, doesn't kill anyone, so he doesn't want that to happen. He doesn't want the inmates to escape, but he also doesn't want them to get hurt in that regard as well. Which, unfortunately, at the end of this game, does result in the death of the Joker. Mark Hamill's Joker does end up dying at the end of this game, and it is actually quite sad. You didn't think you would feel for the Joker at the end of this game. But it is done in a really, really good way at the end of a fantastic boss battle. And like I said in Arkham Asylum, where I thought the boss battles were okay in the last game, they are done phenomenally in this game. The combat is way better, a lot more fluid. They ironed out all the kinks that were in the first game, and this game, they just stepped it up again. The boss battles are brilliant. Such a large variety. One of the best boss battles in this game is hands down the Mr. Freeze boss battle, because you have to use all the gadgets in your repertoire, and you can't injure Mr. Freeze the same way you did previously. So it's almost like the game's thinking, knows what move you made previous, and is like, you're not doing that twice on me. So I think that's really, really good, really, really clever. There's other great boss battles as well, like Ra's al Ghul is done really, really well. I also like the end boss battle against Clayface, because it turns out that there was two Jokers all along throughout the game taunting Batman, but one was actually Clayface in disguise. It was done really, really well. I loved Batman Arkham City. And like I said, there was also side missions where there was a Hush side mission where someone was stealing someone's identity and he was trying to become Bruce Wayne. You've got the Mad Hatter where Batman goes to his tea party. You've got Deadshot. You've got all sorts. Riddler comes back to do more Riddler trophies, but this time he's a little bit more complex. He's actually kidnapped hostages and has put them in these weird, saw-like traps where you've got to try and save them from these weird rooms. He goes really ham in this game. But there's also other, almost DLC story this time called Harley Quinn's Revenge, which takes place a little bit after the events of Arkham City, where Harley is mourning the loss of Joker and has kidnapped Batman, and Robin is sent in to go and save Batman. It's quite a good little, I think about a couple of hours maybe. I think I've beaten it in 2 hours. It's not overly long, but it's long enough to play. And it is a bit of fun, and I did enjoy it. But I love Arkham City, and if I was to give this a rating, I'd give this a 9 out of 10. It is almost a flawless game for me, and I have played it. I've lost track of how many times I've played this game. It is absolutely brilliant, and I would highly recommend it. I'd say you could even play it as your first Arkham game. You don't have to go back to play Arkham Asylum. And to be fair, I actually played Arkham City first before Arkham Asylum, and I still knew what was going on. But yeah, fantastic game. But before we get to the next game in chronological order, we're going to have to take a step back and have a little look at a game which came out then 2 years later again in 2013, but decided rather than following on from Arkham City, it would go back and give us the origins of Batman during his first few years as the Caped Crusader. I'm, of course, talking about Batman Arkham Origins. Okay, so now the year is 2013 and Batman Arkham Origins is the latest in the Arkham franchise, but it's taken a step back to give us the early years of Batman and is, apart from when we get onto Suicide Squad, if we were just counting the other ones, it is the most different out of all the Arkham franchise. You know, for a start, the cast has changed. Kevin Conroy and Mark Hamill do not reprise their roles as Batman and Joker in this. Instead, Roger Craig Smith, you might know him in loads of things. I know him as the voice of Sonic the Hedgehog. And Troy Baker does the voice of Joker. And both do a fantastic job. And it sort of makes sense for them to have a slightly different voice, since you're going back in time a fair few years, so they haven't grown into their personalities yet. So I think it's done really, really well. But yeah, this is Arkham Origins. So Batman doesn't really have a relationship with the GCPD in this game. In fact, they kind of see him as more of a, not necessarily a threat, but they don't like the way he does things, and so they try to almost treat him as a villain at the same time. But they do come round to him by the end. But yeah, and unfortunately though, they do shoehorn Joker into this game, because they revolve it around like all these assassins who are going out trying to, who like are most wanted, who are after Batman, and Batman's after them. You know, there's loads of great ones like Black Mask. You see early Killer Croc in this. You know, there's some really good ones. Deathstroke is in this as well, who has debatably one of the best boss battles in the Arkham franchise as well, other than Mr. Freeze. Because Deathstroke is really hard though. He's a solid boss battle, and anyone who's played the Arkham Origins, you know the pain of Deathstroke. And I played it originally on the Xbox 360, but lately I've played it on the Wii U. It is very difficult on the Wii U. But we find out in this game that Black Mask, in this particular game, was Joker. So they just wanted to shoehorn Joker in, and he's fine, and he contributes to the plot to a degree, and it is nice to see early Joker, but if I'm honest, he wasn't really needed. The open world in this game is a bit weird, because it takes elements from what we'd see later in Arkham Knight, but then also does elements from Arkham City, so you'll recognise bits and pieces. It's a bit of a weird take on Gotham, and a bit of a weird atmosphere, and it all takes place at Christmas time as well. It is a bit of a strange game, and it's the one that I go back to revisit the least. I've played it once or twice. The Bane boss battle at the end is pretty good, when he finally gets his full Titan muscles and everything, and you've got to like hide from him in the grates. It is really, really good. And you've got Alfred talking to him in his ear, saying you've not got much time left to defeat Bane. It is really, really good. Penguin in this as well. There's lots of villains from Batman in this as well. It is really, really good. But it is the weakest for me of the core Arkham franchise. So I don't really have it. But they do implement this new system of, because in all the Arkham games you sort of get this what's known as like detective mode, where if you press one of the triggers at the back, it will like show you like almost like heat signatures of all the villains. They'll have like outlines. They might be like red or orange or blue. Blue if it's like a civilian or the bad guy's calm. Red if they're a threat with a gun. That sort of thing. They implement like a new form of that where you can like rewind time and see footage of what, how a case has happened. So almost like if someone's broken into a flat, I think in this one, or an apartment, Batman's able to watch it back step by step. As guys break into the house or shoot at a wall, he's able to piece it all together. You can actually be a proper detective. It is quite neat, and I do like it. And they do further implement that later then in Arkham Knight. So it is done really, really well. But yeah, I'd say overall, if I was to rate this game out of 10, I'd probably give this one maybe a 6 or a 7. Possibly, yeah, 6 or a 7, depending on how I'm feeling. It's an alright game, but it's not my favourite in the Arkham franchise. But then, 2 years later, so they're really sticking to the theme of 2 years, we got what we thought was going to be the last in the Arkham franchise, especially since we have a massive gap then after that game. But in 2015, we got the release of Batman Arkham Knight. So now we move on to 2015 with Batman Arkham Knight, a game that tried to be very big and very bold and was hearing the cries of the people. And what do I mean by that is, well, a lot of people like to call this game Batman Arkham Tank Simulator, and I am one of those people. Because all through the previous games, I've seen comments, I saw people for ages moaning that they wanted the Batmobile to be in this game properly. And in Batman Arkham Knight, because of how big the map is in this game, which is a really big map, you know, we can go to 3 different major areas of Gotham, and you can fly around, zip between the buildings. It's done really well. But they thought you need to be able to traverse that a little bit quicker, so they gave us the Batmobile, which is fantastic. But when you have the Batmobile, they then thought, well, we got to then make some fights that maybe involve Batman fighting in the Batmobile. But unfortunately, they seem to then take that far in the wrong way, and almost every major boss battle is done in the Batmobile fighting tanks. So it's a little bit boring. But what's the plot of Arkham Knight? Well, this one, the main villain is actually Scarecrow, who at the end of halfway through Arkham Asylum, he gets stopped. His plans get stopped by Batman, and he gets practically taken and eaten by Killer Croc in the sewers. And we never see from him again. We don't know if he's alive or anything, but it turns out that Killer Croc has actually mangled his face, which has driven him even more demented than he already was. And so he wants revenge on Batman and all of Gotham. Gotham's evacuated in this because Scarecrow's plan is to dump the whole city full of fear toxin, you know, and drive everyone crazy, even though he waits for everyone to be evacuated before doing so, meaning that the only ones who are still in the city to get affected by the fear toxin are the villains, the inmates, and the GCPD who are locked up in the GCPD. So I don't really get what his plan was there. But yeah, he wants revenge on Batman, but also he teams up with someone else who knows Batman of old, which is where the title comes from. He teams up with someone known as the Arkham Knight, which I remember that they said this was going to be a brand new character, never before seen, never done before, totally new and unique for this game, you know, hence the title. But it turns out it was pretty much the plot of Red Hood, or Under the Red Hood, because the identity of Arkham Knight, spoilers if you've not played the game yet, is Jason Todd, one of the old Robins that Batman used to have. Which would have been an interesting twist in the game if the trailers and the game hadn't practically spelled it out for you that it was Jason, because Batman goes on this trip of having multiple hallucinations of Jason Todd throughout the game. So it makes it really obvious that it's Jason Todd. So it's done poorly, really poorly, because it could have been an interesting surprise. It wouldn't have made the character unique. It would have been just, you know, rehashing something of old, but at least the reveal would have been a bit better rather than us going, we already know it's Jason. But also Joker is back again, because this time the game actually starts with you burning the Joker's body. So you think he's gone, but the way Joker comes back is through Batman, because they say that apparently when they cured everyone in Arkham City, they missed a couple of patients who were still infected with Joker's blood. 5 people, I think they say in particular, and now they are all slowly turning into the Joker and showing signs of the Joker, like getting pale skin, green hair, you know, maniacal laughs, they're crazy. But also apparently Batman is still affected a little bit, and when Batman gets infected with fear toxin, it brings the Joker to the forefront of his mind, and the Joker starts to possess Batman through the game. So you see the Joker through hallucinations through Batman. He's just there in the corner, like your conscience, your little buddy on your shoulder. And Batman slowly becomes the Joker more and more through the game, culminating in a fantastic little creepy sequence where you are a possessed Batman, but you see Joker, and you get to actually be Joker, and it is quite cool, I must admit. but it's all about Batman overcoming the Joker, fighting off the Joker, and defeating Scarecrow, and trying to repair a relationship with Jason when he finds out that Jason is actually still around. And in the end of the game, Batman's identity does get revealed to the world through Scarecrow, so everyone knows Bruce Wayne is Batman. And so he decides to give up the role of Batman and supposedly goes back to Wayne Manor, blows up Wayne Manor in the Batcave, and that's the end of Bruce Wayne and Batman. It is a fun game. The combat is definitely fine, finally at its peak. It is very smooth. The transitions between when you can fight multiple bad guys at once, it's really good. The new gadgets are brilliant. The Batmobile is fun, but it is repetitive. The Rogues Gallery is huge. There's so many side missions. Although, can I just say, the Riddler missions are ridiculous at this point. He turns his trials into, racetracks that you gotta do, and it's just another way for them to implement the Batmobile. I'm not a huge fan of that. It was silly, and it's all to save Catwoman, who he's trapped Catwoman in an orphanage nearby, and you gotta save her. It's all weird. But this game is very doom and gloom, though, because Batman at some point goes to all his friends, Robin, Nightwing, Catwoman, basically saying that this is the last time I'm ever going to see you. I'm giving up being Batman, it's too dangerous. It is very finite. They make out that this is the end for the Arkham franchise. And that's why they include all the Rogues Gallery, and you have so many villains. You literally see everyone. You see everyone that you've seen through all the games. You've got Deathstroke, whose fight is done in a tank, which is stupid. He's more hand-to-hand combat. You see Firefly, Mad Hatter, Mr. Freeze, who finally reunites with Nora properly. You've got Bane. You've got Professor Pig. You've got Killer Croc. You literally get Ra's al Ghul pops up again. You literally see everybody at some point pretty much in this game to say goodbye. Two-Face, Penguin, the list goes on. But yeah, I didn't mind Arkham Knight. It was sort of a mixed bag. So I'd probably say this is like a 7 out of 10 for me. A little bit better than Arkham Origins, but not as good as Arkham Asylum or Arkham City. However, 7 years later, not 7 years, sorry, 9 years later, on the 2nd of February, 2024, we got the release of, and I know a lot of people agree, of debatably one of the most insulting games to ever be technically graced with the Arkham name. I'm still having a hard time accepting it. I'm of course talking about Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League. I gotta give you my brief thoughts on this because this is ridiculous. Oh boy, where to begin with Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League? I mean, I still have a hard time accepting this as being part of this whole Arkham universe. It's just a travesty of a game. It is insulting. You could have easily made this separate. And there was a game that came out, I think, 2 years before this, called Gotham Knights, which would have been a way better sequel to Arkham Knight than Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League ever was. It's ridiculous. The characters you play as, I don't mind the fact that you can play as those characters. You've got Captain Boomerang, Deadshot, King Shark, Harley Quinn. You can play as all those characters, and they're great to be able to play as. But they all feel the same. And it's just one of those corporate looter-shooter... it's just boring. It feels like they were trying to get on the genre of games like Fortnite and stuff. It felt really, really bad. I despised it. It didn't feel like an Arkham game in anything but maybe the name and references. Because, if I'm being honest, apart from the fact that there's something called the Arkham Museum in this, where basically there's a mission in the game, part of the story, where the Suicide Squad are looking for Batman, and they infiltrate this museum, and basically Batman is hunting them down, and you get to see little bits from every Arkham game. You get to see the whole tale of the Arkham franchise, from Arkham Asylum all the way to Arkham Knight, in this horror haunted house style attraction. Basically, here's all the good stuff, but you're not playing that good stuff, you're playing this. That's basically what it was. Oh, and what do I mean by Batman is hunting them down? Oh, well, because the core aspect of this game, if the title wasn't obvious enough, is you're supposed to kill the Justice League. The Justice League have been possessed by Brainiac, and they've got to stop the Justice League. You know, Amanda Waller hires the Suicide Squad to basically take the Justice League down and stop Brainiac. And that's pretty much what you got to do. Very thin plot. You know, the missions are repetitive. They are boring. You know, the Suicide Squad don't really use what they're known for. You know, they all play the exact same. It is terrible. Kevin Conroy does reprise his role as Batman. One of the last times that he does this. They do a tribute to him at the end, which is very sweet, very nice. Now, I know they did rectify this. They had to come out, you know, later in DLC and other missions to say, actually, that's not how Batman dies. He's actually... They were all duplicates, and the Justice League are actually all still alive. But I think they did that as a backtrack, because originally, during the story mode where you're, you know, taking each of them out, Harley Quinn defeats Batman by simply shooting him in the head. Just shoots Batman in the head, and Batman does nothing to defend himself and just lets it happen. And they play then the main Arkham theme over the background. It is insulting and it is terrible. Awful. And it would have been an awful way for him to go out. So I am glad they rectified it, but they only rectified it because they knew how big a backlash they were getting from it. Yeah, I'm not a fan of this game at all, if I'm honest. Really not. Kevin Conroy did a great job when he came back, for what it's worth, but Suicide Squad, Kill the Justice League needs to just stop. It needs to stop, go away, and I never really want to think about it again. I only own it just as a completionist that own everything that's technically Arkham related, even though in my mind, I struggle to accept it as part of the Arkham universe. But yeah, you do tackle each of the Justice League, apart from Wonder Woman. You know, you take on Flash, you take on Superman, you take on Green Lantern, you take on Batman. You know, you do take them on in interesting-ish battles, but that's about it, really. You know, and the world is fairly big, but it gets boring pretty quick. You defeat the same enemies, missions repeating. You can get bored really, really quick. And the fact that at the start, you could only play this game online. So if you didn't have an internet connection or you weren't connected to their servers, you weren't playing this game. And that happened to me numerous times, and it frustrated the hell out of me. Angered me to the core. I've spent... I mean, at the time, I think it was $59.99. I spent nearly 60 quid on this game, and you're telling me I can't play it? I'm sorry. No, that's not how your game should work, especially not when you're linking to a franchise as phenomenal as the Arkham franchise. So yeah, it was just insulting. The game is insulting. I haven't played it in about 6-7 months, and I don't know if I ever will again, if I'm being perfectly honest. I think I'll just stick to Batman Arkham Origins, Asylum, City, and Night, if I'm being perfectly honest, because they are the true Batman Arkham games, in my eyes anyway. But that is going to be all she wrote for my video on Batman, the Arkham franchise. I hope you did enjoy this video. Please like it by giving it a thumbs up and comment down below your thoughts on the Arkham franchise. Which is your favourite game? Which is your worst game? Would you like them to continue the Arkham franchise in one way, shape or form? Or if not, just let me know. And subscribe if you are new. But for now, this is the Nerdy Grail signing off. I hope you've had an amazing day, and I'll see you all in the next video. Bye for now, everyone.